The Soul King, the being who stands in heaven and maintains the order of the Bleach universe. What is the Soul King? What are the requirements for becoming the Soul King? And who were all the Soul King candidates throughout time? In addition to answering these three questions, I'll also rank the Soul King candidates in order of their compatibility to fulfill the role of Soul King. While power is certainly an important factor, my objective is to rank them according to their ability to be true gods, factoring other abilities that they might have in their arsenal which would allow them to rule reality. And before I continue, be sure to like and subscribe and hit the notification for more videos like this.
Bankai, 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 Bankai.
The core purpose of the Soul King is to stabilize the Soul Society where massive numbers of souls pass through. Without that key figure, the king, all would crumble. Therefore, if the Soul King were to be killed or removed, the Soul Society would break apart. And not only Soul Society, but everything connected to it, the living world, Hueco even the infinite-sized Garganta would break apart. And as the Garganta essentially holds everything, all the realms would be in jeopardy. Furthermore, even the Mugen, which is a completely separate space-time from the Soul Society, experienced the feedback from Soul Society's impending doom. Therefore, the first function of a Soul King is to act as the linchpin, which stabilizes Soul Society and as a result, the rest of the realms. And many fans don't know this, but this feat is accomplished by pure power. After absorbing the Soul King, Yuha displayed his raw power, and Hashwalt, upon seeing this, admitted that without that power, the world cannot stand. And the novel We Do Not Always Love You confirmed that it was because Yuha still contained the power from the Soul King that he was still qualified to act as linchpin for the world. As a result, as I rank, the first qualification I'll look for is their ability to supply the energy necessary to hold the world together. In other words, Soul King power level. The second function of a Soul King is to literally be God of the world. Soul Kings who can fulfill this secondary function are not only linchpins, as in they not only stabilize the world, but they have the power to impose their will upon it. Soul King Yuha Baha wanted to impose his will upon the world by merging life and death and return the universe to what it used to be. As he explained to Ichigo, the worlds were once one and the same, life and death mixed together, whilst Aizen's objective was to wipe out the universe and create a brand new version of it. So the second function of a truly godlike Soul King is to have power over reality, which requires them to be more than just a linchpin of the world. So the second qualification of a truly godlike being is to be able to impose their will upon the universe, a Soul King with full autonomy. And with those two defined qualifications, let's now begin to rank our Soul King candidates. In last place, number 8, whom I'll call the God of Emotions, given the foundation of his powers, Ginjo Kugo. Although Ginjo might be last place on the list, to be a Soul King candidate, he ranks extremely high in the Bleach verse in terms of power. Like most of the beings on this list, Ginjo is a mixed entity. First, he's a special type of mutated human soul called a Fullbringer. As a Fullbringer, Ginjo has the power to draw out the souls of objects around him and put them to use. All things, including non-living things in the world, possess souls. Fullbringers can use the ground as a springboard to jump higher or stand in water by drawing out and manipulating the souls of the ground and water. And provided it is an object with which they have a stronger bond, like Ginjo's pendant or Yukio's game, or Tsukishima's bookmark, Chad's skin, or Orihime's earpin, these Fullbringers can exact an even greater amount of power. As a Soul King candidate, Ginjo can also discharge a Zero, as he possesses the power of a hollow inside him, and was once a substitute Soul Reaper who can Bankai, which means that Ginjo is a Fullbringer, a Soul Reaper, and a hollow. And in Kanthir own world, it is said that he discharged a Getsuga Tensho which rivaled Ichigo's strongest Getsuga Tensho. But it seems Ginjo was able to produce that much firepower because he was emotionally amped. And even if he used a lower form of current Ichigo, the fact is current Ichigo is an absolute monster. While it's unclear if Ginjo could consistently fulfill the role of linchpin or even control the world, he is a candidate, although Tokinada implied that Ginjo would need to kill him and Ikone, and as a result take the Hogiku for himself and use it to evolve into a Soul King. And you'll understand my reasoning for placing him here once I get to the next person. So Ginjo, the God of the Heart, doesn't have a solid description to be able to maintain the world as linchpin or control it, but could potentially do so through the help of the Hogyoku. Number 7, the God of Speed, Hikone Ubuginu. Created by the efforts of Tokinada, the head of the Tsunayashiro Great Noble House, and Ora Michibane, the Fullbringer with the power to manipulate matter, Hikone was specifically designed to become the Soul King. The child was a prodigy like Ichigo, and even more so a mixed being. Hikone is a Fullbringer, a Quincy, a Shinigami, a Hollow, with parts of the Soul King and Gremmy's brain, in addition to having other types of souls, and a sealed version of an ancient hollow called Ikomikidomoe as their Zanpakuto. When Hikone transforms into merged form, those in their presence felt that Hikone was qualified to be the Soul King. Hikone, whom I grant the moniker the God of Speed, is able to combine Flash Step, Fullbring Step, Sonido, and Hirenkyaku to achieve what is referred to as the pinnacle of speed movement in the Bleach verse. They can achieve instant regeneration like a hollow, fire Ceros as Quincy arrows, use Hakuda to blast their opponent's internal organs and ignore durability, and it's uncertain if even the likes of Ginjo Kugo could satisfy Hikone as an opponent. However, Tokinada's objective throughout the novel was to capture Kisuke and use them to make a Hogyoku to make Hikone into a true god. So while Hikone has a much more impressive constitution than Ginjo and higher power level, he is still not fully in the seat of god. Number 6, the god of stillness, Mimi Hagi. When Mimi Hagi sprung from Jushiro Ukitake, Yuha described it as the Soul King itself, as in Mimi Hagi became the literal embodiment of the Ryo. Aizen announcing to Ukitake that no one stood in heaven stemmed from its knowledge that Ukitake did in fact contain Mimi Hagi, with Kanfir's own world adding that Ukitake was someone with the right to stand in heaven. Mimi Hagi had additional powers like the Soul King, such as the power to see the future, and its power of stillness was so immense that it could stagnate even the Soul King's remains. Since it was actually capable of serving as linchpin by grabbing onto the Ryo's body, and was recognized as the embodiment of the Soul King by Yuha, it ranks above the other two on this list. And while Mimi Hagi did express some degree of will, it doesn't demonstrate any kind of reality warping or universal ruling capabilities, and it was unclear as to how long it could serve as linchpin. With that consideration, the god of stillness, Mimi Hagi, will rank at number 6. Number 5, the god of sacrifice, Yuha's father, the sealed Soul King. This was the Soul King for the majority of the Bleach manga, not the prime Soul King, but his remains. Even in this reduced state, he still possesses godlike powers, like the power to see the future with his eyes. It was his power which bestowed the Oken upon the Zero Squad members, which acts as the key to Royal Palace. And according to Kanfir's own world, it allows the Soul King to communicate with the Zero Squad members. Furthermore, if any member of Squad Zero dies, the others can call that person back to life, because the Oken binds their spiritual power to the Royal Palace. And according to Ichibe, the Irazasando dimension can only be accessed by those who are granted permission by the Soul King. He was the linchpin of the world, and upon his death, all of reality would break apart. This version of the Ryo is nothing compared to the prime Soul King, as he was essentially stripped of majority of his power. And yet, despite that, it still contained enough raw energy to hold the world together for over 1,000,000 years. In fact, Yuha's corpse is now able to serve as linchpin for the world because it contains the remains of this Soul King's energy. So this Soul King has some degree of ruling authority, although for the most part it's simply the linchpin. But most importantly, it has an insane amount of raw power and has a feat of holding the world together for over 1,000,000 years. As a result, the god of sacrifice is ranked at number 5. Number 4, god of protection, Ichigo Kurosaki. If this list was merely concerned with the raw power necessary to be linchpin, Ichigo would be ranked even higher. Aizen Sosuke, who had transcended Hollow and Shinigami to the point that they could not even sense his spiritual power, that is unless he allowed them to, was in turn transcended by Ichigo in his Dangai form. He even admitted to not being able to sense Ichigo's spiritual pressure even after acquiring monster form. So Ichigo had significantly more power than Aizen did. In the Thousand-Year Blood War, Ichigo entered Irazasando and proved that he was worthy of being the Soul King, bearing the weight of what he wished to protect, everlasting revelations, memories, and the power of the king, proving that his body was a suitable vessel for the next Ryo, tapping into his essence which transcended Shinigami, to prove that he was worthy of sitting in the seat of the divine. Ichigo is directly described as possessing the attributes to be the Soul King, which meant that he had all the energy in the world necessary to be the linchpin of the universe. But that is all Ichibe intended for Ichigo to be, as he intended to cut Ichigo up and reduce him to the same thing the previous Soul King was, even joking that Ichigo would be rendered silent and unable to answer his questions. But Ichigo should be able to fill the secondary capacities of the previous king, to grant Oken and so on, as his intent was to have Ichigo be the same kind of silent being as the previous king. So while Ichigo would not have the full agency to rule over reality, even after Yuha absorbed the previous Soul King and stacked the Almighty on top of it, he was still threatened by Ichigo's power. He openly admitted his reverence to Ichigo's power by breaking his blade with the Almighty, and despite Yuha being off guard, it was a drained Ichigo who was able to cut him down. as a young hero had previously collapsed in the Garganta. So as far as being a linchpin goes, Ichigo was overqualified. But even if Ichigo still maintained his autonomy, he would lack the ability to manipulate reality to the extent as the people above him on this list. In other words, while he's linchpin, he's not as versatile in manipulating matter and warping reality to shape the cosmos to his will like the people above him on this list. But he does have the raw power to do so. Therefore, the God of Power is ranked at number 4. Number 3, God of Illusions, Sosuke Aizen. To be a Soul King, one must surpass a Soul Reaper in the nature of their existence. In other words, they must transcend the Shinigami. And this is specifically in reference to the Aizen, who was continuously evolving through the Hogyoku. While Ichigo was certainly on a higher level of power, Aizen would still be qualified to replace the Ryo, as he also had the qualification of transcending Soul Reaper and Hollows. While transcending reason, he was tapping into the power that was able to rule over heaven, as said by the author. He was continuously referred to as God by the author and the character books. So while Ichigo had more power as a linchpin, Aizen would have been better at manipulating reality, given his godlike power set, including godly cosmic awareness, as he was able to sense events taking place outside of Mugen, a completely closed-off dimension across an infinite stretch of space and time, as it is described in the raw Japanese, the anime, and the 13 Blades character book. Therefore, Aizen had the cosmic sense of a god. Furthermore, due to the Hogyoku, which is able to turn feelings into reality, Aizen had the power of reality warping, the power to bend the world to his will. And like a cheat code, his soul can continuously adapt to the needs of a Soul King. To understand the power of the soul, let us revisit Oetsu Nemaya's statements that Asauchi can essentially become anything. They have infinite potential. These Asauchis are blank slates created from layers and layers of souls. When received by the Shinigami will imprint their inner worlds, their souls, their hearts upon the blade. And from that comes powers like turning games into reality, fusing and merging endlessly, or the infinite power of absolute zero. Through the interaction of his inner world and the Hogyoku, Aizen essentially had the skeleton key to the soul. With the Hogyoku, he had god-tier illusions, immortality, cosmic awareness, the power to warp reality, manipulate matter, manipulate physics and laws and reason, powers of evolution and adaptation, and so on. Number 2, the God of Fate, Yuha Baha. Yuha absorbed the power of the sealed Soul King, along with Ichigo Kurosaki's powers and other powers from across the verse, including the Quincy's. Even upon death, he still possessed enough raw power inside him to still serve as linchpin for the world. Yuha possessed enough raw energy to rip apart the Bleach universe and make it anew, and almost returned reality to a point where life and death were merged as one. As far as powers are concerned, Yuha's are infinite. In fact, his powers have powers. He can see, know, and overcome the events of all possible futures. He can use causality to act through the future, and even rewrite his own death. Through various means like Sanct Altar, the Medallion, or the Almighty, he can take and give all powers. And all future possibilities are at Yuha's fingertips, as in he can select any possibility he wishes to bring to life, even instantly swapping this version of the universe with another. He can rule over abstract things like fortune and misfortune, use the powers of evolution, biological manipulation, or stillness, turn people's feelings into power through the miracle, turn its very imagination into reality like a god, including instantly creating outer space. He can pierce all things in creation or make himself intangible, or further defy reality by making himself completely non-existent. Recall that he's an accumulation of all the souls that return to him, and one of the basic powers of the Almighty is to take and use all power to his own benefit whenever he chooses. Even the power of the enemy, much less all the souls stored inside him. He who watches and defines fate on a multiversal scale is ranked at number 2, the God of Fate, Yuha Baha. Number 1, the God of Creation, the Prime Soul King. According to information disclosed at a recent Bleach Expo, it seems the current creation story of the Bleach world holds some deception. According to the recent tweets, it was a Soul King's blade which was dipped into the whirlpools to create the 3 worlds, with the waters of these pools then becoming the crystal to seal the Ryo. This bears a similar concept to the Kojiki, the Japanese records of ancient matters concerning the creation of the universe, the cosmogony, where Izanagi and Izanami dipped the spear into the waters to create the lands. According to the tweets, the Soul King had his own blade which he dipped into the waters of the whirlpool, which seems to represent primordial chaos, the stuff of reality, from which the Soul King with his sword would then proceed to create the 3 worlds, molding the reality of those dimensions into existence. existence. And it appears afterwards he was mutilated and sealed away. Ryo-sama was so powerful that even after they reduced his power by removing his limbs and internal organs, his leftover power was able to stabilize reality for over 1 million years. This leftover power was so immense that when Yuha absorbed the Soul King, he practically lost his mind. In fact, the Soul King is the very source of what is called Quincy. The Prime Soul King was a human being, a Quincy, and a Shinigami, with countless Fullbring-like abilities to manipulate the world. He could even give rise to things like the space, time, matter, and energy, and the laws of physics of the dimensions, as he spun them from the primordial whirlpool, with the power to create dimensions outside the space-times of other dimensions, taking and molding what was called all of creation. It is said that he could be described as a being bordering on omnipotence and omniscience, and using him as a blueprint, it became known that Soul Kings could destroy or reshape the universe into their own design. The universe was his playpen and the laws of physics his playthings. This entity could even manifest reason or laws into physical constructs like the cleaner, and weave streams of time like threads into a cocoon which surrounds a Dangai. And he could not only manipulate the primordial stuff which existed before the dimensions, but was the first to wield the almighty powers which see the future, change it, take and give all powers, manipulate possibilities, and so on. The Prime Soul King even possessed empowered body parts like Mimi, Hagi, Pernida, and Gerard, powers of stagnation, evolution, miracles, etc. And pieces of his body, his fragments, functioned like Hogyokus and turned feelings into reality, giving birth to the Foodbringer's powers. The position of number 1 goes to the Prime Soul King, the god of creation. If you enjoyed this video, if you learned something new, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, hit the notification, and so on. Cheers!